Hey everybody, welcome again to Indian Story Read Along. Today's story is going to be from Amar Chitra Katha, and it was a special request from one of our followers. It's called The Wheelbearer. It's from the book called More Stories of the Panchatantra, and this was printed, I believe, in December 1991. So let's get started. The Wheelbearer. Four friends once made their way to the remote hermitage of Yogi Bhairavananda. Now this was back in the olden days, super olden days. There was no electricity, there was kings and queens and kingdoms, and there were sages who had magical powers. So Yogi Bhairavananda seems to be one of these sages. And he says to them outside his door, "Why have you come here?" These four guys say, "We seek your help and guidance. We know that you are gifted with strange powers. We have come out of our homes to find some gold or die in the attempt." So remember, gold, and this is super important later in the story, they want gold, all right? So let's see what happens later in the story, keeping this in mind. The second guy says, "We are certain that what fools call fate or luck is only the fruit of sincere effort." So Bhairavananda is thinking for a moment. He says, "They seem to be courageous and determined. They should make good disciples." And he's feeling nice, and he says, "I think I'll help them. I hope they don't have to regret it." He went into his hut and came out with 4 cotton wicks. So a wick is, in Tamil we would say a tiri. It is this little tiny piece of cotton that you roll up very, very tight into like a small line, maybe the size of your finger. And when you're lighting a diya or when you're lighting a deepam, you put this wick in the diya, you put some oil in there, it soaks into the cotton wick, and then the wick burns for a long time. It keeps that flame for a long time. So this is how they lit oil lamps back in the day and even today. So that's what he has. He has 4 cotton wicks. Bhairavananda says, "I'll give each of you one of these wicks." And look, these guys are super happy to receive it because they know that there's something really magical about these wicks. Bhairavananda says, "Take them and walk to the mountains. The moment a wick falls, dig the ground and you'll find some treasure. Collect it and go home." Very specific instructions. And let's see if they follow it. The 4 friends bought some pickaxes and set out. They say, "Whatever we find, we'll share equally among us." As they neared the slopes of the mountain, one guy says, "Hey, the wick slipped out of my hand." And so he says, "Quick, let's dig up the treasure." Keeping the wicks in their sling bags, the other 3 helped him. And then this guy says, "Look, copper ore. Come, all of you, let's carry as much as we can and go home." But the other 3 guys are not very impressed with this. They say, "How much can it fetch us?" The other guy says, "Fool, it's only copper." The third guy says, "Let's go farther." But this one guy is super happy with what he found. And he says, "You may go farther if you like. I'm content with this. I'm returning home." And he is very happy. He takes it and he goes. A few days later, when the second wick fell, the guy who dropped the wick says, "It's silver. Why go any farther? Let's take what we can and return home." But the other 2 are hesitating. One guy goes, "Well, and not see what we might find ahead? It might be what we came out for, gold." And this other guy goes, "Gold, let's go." The guy who dropped the wick says, "You may do as you please. I'm going home." So this is interesting that they have different standards for what they're going to stop for and what makes them happy. So this guy was not impressed with copper, but he was impressed with silver enough to take it and go. So these other 2 guys, their line, they draw it differently. They draw it at a different place. The 2 friends trudged on till the 3rd wick fell. There they are digging, and then they got what they were looking for. "Gold! We've got what we set out to get. We needn't go any farther." And if you have that much gold even today, you're super rich. You actually don't need to go farther today. So imagine how much money that would have been worth back in those days. But that one guy who's looking kind of upset here, he says, but we still have one wick left. It's bound to bring us precious gems, a handful of which would fetch us more than all this gold would. Come, follow me. Look, he's still not happy. Isn't that interesting? But this guy, he knew what they were intending to get in the very beginning when I said, remember, they want to go out and get gold. He got that gold, and he's good with it. He says, I'll tell you what, you go ahead. I'll wait here for you. So he's going to pack up all that stuff while his friend goes on alone. So the fourth friend walked on alone up into the mountains, into the hill. He says, he's thinking, it's a hot day indeed. The sun is merciless, but I must not give up. And he's thinking even further, what I wouldn't give for a drop of water. Right now it seems more precious to me than the most precious of gems. He walked on and on, but the wick refused to fall. So he's going on ahead and he goes, I seem to have lost my way. Whatever I do, I seem to be walking in circles. Where am I? Then he hears someone screaming from behind that rock. Ah! Ah! Now this part is a little scary. This guy has a chariot wheel on his head. In the old days, they had these big wooden wheels. They were attached to chariots, and you can see that the spoke of this wheel is right on his head, and it just would not stop. It won't fall off. It's just right on his head and staying there. So then the traveler with the pickaxe says, what are you doing here with that wheel on your head? Anyway, can you tell me where I can find some water? Can you imagine that? He doesn't even go and help him. He's just like, yeah, that's weird. Yeah, so anyway, do you know where I can get some water? And then he says something he probably shouldn't have said. He says, I'm dying of thirst. Oh, if only I could be relieved of this thirst forever. Boom, the wheel flies off that other guy's head and then lands on him. What's the meaning of this? Keep that wheel away. And it lands on his head. Then that scruffy guy who had it on his head first says, I can't, good sir. It's the work of the god of wealth to protect his treasures from seekers like us. You will now be free from hunger, thirst, old age, and death. And then the traveler says, when do I become free of this torture? Imagine, that's the cost of being free of all of those things. He'll never die, but how long is he going to live like this? And then the guy says, when another seeker carrying one of those wicks comes and speaks to you. And that doesn't mean like his friend who's probably out there looking for him. It means somebody way, way into the future. So then this guy's saying, I can't bear the pain. My head. How long have you been here? And he says, I don't know, but I set out with a magic wick when Rama was king of Ayodhya. Oh man, okay, so when Rama was king of Ayodhya, that was like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, if you're estimating low. So he says that's a very long time, and of course he never died during that entire time because the wheel has made him free of old age and death and all that stuff. So he continues, greedy for something more than copper, silver, or gold, I reached this place in search of gems. I saw a man with a wheel on his head, and I don't have to tell you the rest. I am grateful to you for setting me free. Farewell. Oh, Lord. Meanwhile, this guy packed up his gold. He's happy, and he goes, why hasn't my friend returned as yet? I better follow his footprints and go in search of him. He might be in trouble. A few hours later, whoa, he walked hours to find him. That's a good friend. There you are. But what are you doing to yourself? Throw off that wheel at once and come away with me. And then this guy says, I can't. A quirk of fate. It was like this. When he finished his strange tale, this guy gets mad at him. His buddy gets mad at him. He says, what you call a quirk of fate was your own greed. We set out to find gold and we found it. But you were not content. You wanted gems. Now you will have to stay here and pay for your greed. There he is. He has to leave him. So he says, my poor friend, much as I hate to leave him in this plight, I have no choice. I am powerless to help him. The moral of the story, as there are morals in every Panchatantra story, be ambitious, but not avaricious. That means you can have an aim, but once you got it, you got it. Just don't go crazy over more and more and more stuff, because you're never going to be happy that way. I'm really happy that you guys joined us for this story. This has been The Wheelbearer, and the channel is called Indian Story Read Along. Subscribe to our channel if you like it, if you like this story, and if you want more stories like this, because I got a ton of books and I want to read them to you before they fall apart. All right, we'll see you next time.